evening. I call the February 24th Board of Ed meeting to order at 7 o'clock. We have a moment of silence from Mr. Gauss.
I usually talk about including everyone when it comes to rules and policies. Oh, sorry. How's that? I usually talk about everyone when it comes to rules and policies, but today I mentioned a club that most of us belong to, one that I wish was a bit more exclusive. Unfortunately, it's not. February is National Cancer Awareness Month. As a 24-year-old survivor myself, every morning when my warm feet hit the cold floor, I feel blessed for the cures that have been discovered and that there are people who continue to search for even more effective treatments. Recently, I felt especially grateful that the leadership at our Department of Health and Human Services has a new perspective on nutrition and healthy living and is changing the paradigm when it comes to the science of eating, exercise, and prevention. We all know, knew, were, or are someone who is fighting cancer in one of its many forms. Please take a moment to reflect on their battles and maybe tomorrow give them a call or send them a text to let them know you're thinking of them.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States
Of the United States of America, and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. In the unlikely event of an emergency, please exit through those back doors or the side doors down the steps in the back entrance. Roll call, please, Ms. Lawler.
Mr. Gauss.
Here.
Mr. Anderson.
Here.
Ms. Broculio.
Here.
Mrs. Cushman.
Here.
Mrs. Gerard.
Here.
Mrs. Kiner.
Here.
Mr. Kober.
Present.
Mrs. McGuire Bruce.
Here.
Board Chair Pickett.
Here. All right. And tonight we have a nice guest. Any opening words there, Mr. Macchio?
No, we're going to welcome Assistant Superintendent of Curriculum and Instruction, Michelle Middleton. She's going to provide you with a quick update regarding the numbers that are associated with the Next Generation Accountability, but more important, sort of the work that we're doing to try to impact those numbers and next steps associated with them.
Thank you. And I left you all a little cheat sheet on your, it gives it a little description, because you'll see I'm just going to have numbers and the titles of the descriptors. So what I've done is I have, I have the last 3 years of data. So 22, 23, 23, 24, and 24, 25. This first screen is just about ELA, English Language Arts. It's 1A is performance for all students. These are the scores on Smarter Balanced Assessments 3 through 8 and grade 11 SAT school day. 1B is ELA performance for high need students. 2A is ELA growth. All students in grades 4 through 8 have had a growth target from the year before scores, and its percentage of how many students have met that. And then our growth for high need students. The next slide is the same information, but just for math. So 1C and 1D are the math performance, the achievement data, students scoring proficient or above on those assessments. And 2C and 2D are the growth for, again, the students in 4 through 8 that had the growth targets. If you need me to slow down, just let me know. 1E and 1F are the science performance scores. The NGSS is given in grades 5, 8, and 11. 2E and 2F are different because those are our progress towards English proficiency for literacy and oral language. Now, there is no growth for science because, again, it's 5, 8, and 11, so there's not one year to another to measure growth. The progress towards English proficiency is for our EL/ML students, and it's based on the Lost Links assessments. These scores are a little bit harder to predict ups and downs because It is a fluid population. The assessment begins in January, goes through January to February, and students, if they move in October and are a beginning emerging learner, they're taking that assessment as well. So it's a lot of different factors that go into that one. Chronic absenteeism, we've talked about this a lot. John Daig has been here and discussed chronic absenteeism with you a lot. So these scores on the left are for all students, and the scores on the right are for high needs. This is the one indicator we want to see go down. So it's trending correctly. We want less chronically absent students than more. This is preparation for college career readiness. Percent taking courses, that's the amount of students that are taking AP courses, UConn ECE courses, courses at Asnuntuck, whether we used to have our partnership with them, we still do for some of the CCP courses. Now, the percent passing exams, that is twofold, and it's a very deceiving score. The first score is students, the grades they get in the AP and the ECE and those courses that count as dual enrollment. The second is every single 11th grader that takes SAT school day, that is considered a college career readiness test. In order for them to be proficient on that, they have to meet the state benchmark of 530 on math and 480 on English. Evidence-based research writing research.
Reading and writing.
Reading and writing. Okay. Anyway, so they have to meet both of those benchmarks. So that is why that number isn't incredibly high. The state actually is looking at that. They're looking at including the SAT on the indicator 1 with the achievement, but also here, actually some people with the State Department of Ed didn't, when I was having conversations with them, they didn't realize those scores turned up twice on 2 different indicators. So they are having discussions about that. There's a whole assessment committee. All right, these 4 all kind of go together. Number 7 is our on track to high school graduation. This is students, they have to have a certain number of credits by the end of their freshman year. And they can't have failed more than one core class. So that's that number. 4-year graduation rate, that's the percentage of students that graduated in 4 years. Remember, that's going to be a year behind. So those are our graduates from last year. That's 24-25. That's going to be our graduates from 23-24. The 6-year graduation rate, that's our high needs students, and that's students that may fall into a high needs category. There's they give a 6-year look back on those students, thinking that it could have been like an English language thing or some other supports that were needed. And then post-secondary entrance is a percentage of students that enroll in a 2- or 4-year college within 12 months of graduating high school. So that one, again, is a harder one to find because they have to track them for 12 months. So that goes back too. Physical fitness, there's 2 different scores for physical fitness. There's a percentage target, which is like 95% participation, and we have met that. But the score they report in the accountability index is the percent passing the exams. And I think if anybody was here last year or watched, you remember they have to pass 4 different subtests in order to be eligible to have passed the physical fitness exam. Our access is a percentage of students taking an art course at the high school. Again, art is not just visual arts. It can be music, it could be theater. There's a lot of different things that can qualify. And the accountability index score, they total everything. They do some weird calculation. There's a different weight here, a different weight there, and they give you an accountability index score every year. So that's the last number. So I'm going to move on from scores unless anybody has a question that they want to ask right this second. Okay. We have a district improvement plan, and the first 2 goals that we're going to talk about are developing the multi-tiered systems of supports framework and the practices of documentation, going district-wide with that, and also aligning and calibrating instructional and intervention practices to meet the needs of all of our learners as well as supporting our Portrait of a Learner. So this year in 25-26, the action steps we've taken, training elementary staff on the new MTSS framework, forms in the protocol. The middle school has been researching and creating an MTS framework for 6-8. We have scheduled and performed academic walkthroughs at all levels. I know you've heard about that and to some different meetings. We're auditing the fidelity of intervention service delivery, both through walkthroughs, departmental meetings with interventionists. There's a lot of different ways we're doing that. And the attendance procedures have been revised, and each building has been trained. I'm sure you've heard John Day talk about that as well. And the LEAP program is in place again. And the LEAP program is an intervention we put in place with home visiting to try to get those students that are chronically absent or on the verge of chronically absent to get back into school so they're not, so the absence isn't an issue. Same two goals, future actions starting next year. We're going to train the elementary staff on EduClimber. We're using that for attendance right now, but it's more the attendance teams and the LEAP home visitors. All of the elementary staff will be trained next year on it. We had a little snag rolling out because of some of the syncing of the data that was coming over was incorrect. Wasn't matching right. We're going to pilot the MTSS framework for JFK, hire and train the first level of instructional coaches. That's budget dependent, obviously. Create expectations and guidelines for those roles. And we're going to continue to schedule and perform academic walkthroughs at all levels and include teachers as part of the walkthrough team. Enfield High already does that, but the other levels want to start doing that as well, bring teachers into each other's classrooms to have the discussions about, you know, what is the instruction looking like. The second set of goals all are on professional learning and staff morale. So developing a professional learning culture that builds staff capacity, meets the needs, all the needs of students and the needs of the teachers, identify and align trauma-informed restorative practices, and improve staff morale and social emotional well-being. So this year, teams from each building attended 6 days of training by Joe Brummer on restorative practices. All staff pre-K-12 have engaged in at least one activity on our Portrait of a Learner. Other sessions have been offered at department and building levels, depending on the level and/or the department. Professional learning on small group instruction has been offered at all levels at multiple times this year. And February 17th, we offered teacher's choice of morning sessions. They could choose 2 75-minute sessions or 1 3-hour session. And we just held that last week. It seems like it was a long time ago. There was a lot of white stuff in between then. But it went very well, I think. And so for next year, these same 3 goals, we are doing future trainings on restorative practices, which will include Joe Brummer coming into each school and coaching. So he'll be in the buildings with the teams, working in the buildings. The instructional coaches would begin working with primary classroom teachers. Again, that's budget dependent. Professional learning will continue to align with best practices, and we will be offering another Teacher's Choice professional learning. I'm assuming the survey results I'm going to be looking at tomorrow are going to show that it was something that they would like to see more of, based on the conversations I heard in the hallway of that day. And our last goal, this slide is a little bit full, and I apologize, but I didn't want to edit down what the HR director had given me. So there's only one goal on this, and this is that EPS will create clear practices around human resource systems, including the onboarding application process and a mentoring program for new staff. So the left-hand side of action steps, that's what we've been doing. So there's been a lot of foundational work done. There's been training on position control. There's been training on the whole Tyler's ERP, which is like the HR system that organizes everything. He's modernizing the HR workflows, bringing things up to date. More structured, more transparent, supportive experience for new employees. And we're trying to position ourselves in a way that we have a comprehensive onboarding and mentoring framework to meet the needs of all staff in the district. Human Resources Manager was hired to assist with daily entry, state reporting, and other necessary systems. That person was hired in December of 2025. The academic office, we held an orientation for new teachers. Teachers in the team program have been assigned mentors and are supported by their mentors and the district facilitator. There's a typo. And EPS will attend job fairs to look for teachers to fill open positions. HR is very focused on the job fair and the recruiting process this year to help us get in a better position to find candidates for our open jobs. This is even more stuff on it. This is future actions for next year. So the continue building on what they've already been doing. It's going to take some time to get those systems fully aligned and get a workflow in place that is updated and where it needs to be. Everything's going to be data-driven. There's going to be, I'm just kind of paraphrasing here because you're all reading. He's going to be modernizing it. There is, the onboarding is going to be a big piece of this. Looking at everything will be budget dependent, data-driven for budget dependent decisions. New teacher orientation will continue, and next year I will be developing a program to support new teachers with sessions every month. So like different little training sessions that are voluntary that'll happen monthly. So that'll go into place for next year as well. I know that this is a lot of information, and I apologize because this is not my wheelhouse per se, but there has been a lot of work and a lot of training going on in the HR department, and I know I don't fully understand position control, but I know Steve talks about it a great deal, and that has been that has been being updated and cleaned up. So that's where we are with future actions for that, and that is all the stuff. I can go back. I can answer any questions you have.
Thank
I
you.
can try to answer any questions you have.
Thank you, Ms. Middleton. I appreciate this overview, and actually I can share with the board the link to EdSite where our accountability index is all on there.
Yeah, it's all public.
So that is all publicly available on EdSite, one of my favorite websites. So I'll put that out there. I will defer to my colleagues to see if there's any questions on the spot. I will also share, we will get this presentation in our weekly update. If things come up as you are able to look at the information, look at the data online, and you have questions, please feel free to email them to myself and Mr. Macchio, and we can have some follow-up. Ms. Berculio, sorry, skipping you.
You mentioned that there will be more restorative practice PDs, and I was just wondering if there's been any data analysis of like referrals or out of classroom supports related to the implementation of the restorative practice PDs that already occurred, or if that's like an action step that might happen in the future.
That will be an action step that'll happen in the future because right now they've just trained teams. So it's a very, we're calling it like year zero because not everybody is trained. Now that said, there were like 4 or 5 different groups that put restorative practice sessions into the Teacher's Choice PD that we're delivering. Some were teachers and some were administrators. So people are wanting to know more information, but next year is when it's going to be like full rollout for everybody, and that's when the data will start being looked at. Because right now it's not fully out there to tell if it's having an impact, especially at the secondary level, where the kiddo might have somebody that was trained, but like 4 or 5 teachers that weren't. It's kind of hard to skew that.
Ms. Berculio, if I could just jump in on that. So there's quite a bit of anecdotal data that we're gathering. Discipline in several of our buildings have gone down tremendously this year. We're starting to see that, especially at the younger levels. Just to update the board, there's real buy-in in general for the staff as they're starting to see some real positive outcomes that are coming out of this. Pure data, though, Ms. Middleton's right, we should be able to see that a little bit clearer from past data to this data. Suspension rate is always a concern that we look at. Obviously, we're hoping that these restorative practices can help mitigate that. Not to say there won't ever be suspension, certainly, but we certainly want to repair the harm that's being done in the building and teach students how to take accountability for their actions. That's the number one goal, and make sure our teachers are supported. So, thanks.
Go ahead, Ms. McGuire Bruce.
All right, so first you had written down, or I had written down as you were talking, orientation for new teachers more than once a year, a check-in with them. So I look forward to hearing more about those training sessions monthly and how that will look to support new teachers. The only other question I had, and this might be something I can, follow up with on a Friday update, but the ML progress had gone down towards English proficiency somewhat significantly this year. I know you had mentioned it was hard to track. Could you say a little bit more about that?
Actually, I can because I did write something down here. Hold on, let me find it. Actually, I don't even need to find it. So I've had discussions with Nick Flynn, who is our TESOL person, and we were discussing why this actually happened. And it's kind of hard to track because of the population of students come in at all times, right? And students are at different levels in their EL
Language acquisition.
language acquisition. And quite honestly, we have a lot more of the newcomers this year, a larger group, and we have a larger group. We had a larger group of secondary. That's where we're seeing our populations. And obviously, if you're a newcomer at secondary, it's a little bit harder to get the language acquisition than it is if you're a second grader. However, Nick actually just was talking to me in his mid-year, like a week or two ago, that he wants to put together a EL language, a learning plan for those students so we can do some progress monitoring and get a better handle and look at those kids individually. So that's something he's actually working on for next year.
Okay.
So he does have plans in place. I didn't put it on there, but I probably could have.
No,
But
that's
yes.
okay. Thank you
No,
for answering the
no
question.
problem.
Okay. That's it for now.
Okay.
Mr. Anderson?
Hi.
Hi.
The first slide you had up there had the indicators for science, math.
ELA.
What were the numbers for the last year that was up there for those?
Hopefully I can read this because I printed in black and white. So for the last year, for all students for ELA, it was 61.5. Do you want all students and high needs?
All students is fine.
All students for ELA was 61.5. For performance, that was achievement, that wasn't growth. Do you want growth too?
Just
Okay.
performance.
For math, I'm so sorry, but I honestly, it's polka dotted and it's about 58. It's about 57. And for science, I'm going to go with 61.5, around there. I'm sorry, it might not be an exact number.
Okay.
I didn't print it in color,
No,
so
that's
I
fine.
can't read
That's
it.
fine. So I'm confused at how we have what I would consider low numbers in those categories, but we have 80% on track or 87% taking college courses and 80% on track to graduate.
Well, the college courses that students take, that's the percentage of students in grades 11 and 12 that are taking dual enrollment or AP or something. Dual enrollment includes with those non-tech courses, and we do have a lot of students taking advantage of those. The percentage of the proficiency that you're seeing there, that is one set test. Like that's the Smarter Balanced, and that's SAT School Day. So it's one test. It's given once a year, and it's a standardized test that's given on the computer. So our numbers, they had gone up. They did go down last year. This also grades 3 through 8. It's not high school. And our numbers had gone up the middle year, just to point out, just to say, just because I feel like saying it, the year in the middle, that was the year that we had the academic coaches. And then the next year is the year where we had some elementary classrooms with class sizes of 29 and 30. So we knew the numbers for last year were going to go down in a lot of these situations. Like they went down in taking arts access because the schedule changed and students have less opportunity. They were taking 8 classes, now they're not.
No, I understand that, and that I get that. I'm just every time I look at all of the indicators, even statewide, it'll be statewide. The math proficiency is like 40%.
Yep, on that one assessment.
how is that possible? I mean, how is it possible that the proficiency on that one assessment is
Mm-hmm.
40% and kids are passing?
Because a student's education is encompassing all of that coursework and what they're doing in the class, and exams in the class that are specific to that content area. This is, like I said, it's one assessment. So, I mean, I don't, do they correlate? They do not, but it's not, like you said, it's not just an Enfield thing. We have these state mandated assessments that we're giving, and our students have shown improvement.
So the standardized testing, the kids
Mm-hmm.
can only get a 40% proficiency.
I'm not saying they can only get 40% proficiency. I'm saying that that's where the state is pretty much averaging, yeah.
Right. But, I mean, if that's what the numbers are, that's what the numbers are.
That's what the numbers are.
But then you take those same students in the classroom and you give them your own tests and they pass.
I think one thing to try to remember is the cumulative exam. The key word of this is cumulative.
Right.
So you're looking at years of information, years of processes and skills that they're trying to test the kids for. I would try to make the comparison akin to, and sorry, Olivia, we're going to go down the high school exam range, right? If you're a high school student who's taking a test on a one unit of matter, a lot of times you'll do very well on that one unit of matter. It's fresh in your mind, you just learned it, and you're ready to be able to apply it. You then look at the end of year exam. It's not uncommon to see the students perform worse on the end of year exam because now you're asking them to recall and synthesize all of the information over that time. It's a similar phenomenon. I think you'll see to that when you look at this across all of the grade levels. You know, you're asking a third grader to remember everything there is in terms of the skills versus when you do the one test on whether they know their just multiplication facts or how to divide something appropriately. So I think there is some comparisons related to that. But it's a once and done cumulative test. Not the best. I will say not the best indicator to know just how well our students are doing.
I would also chime in, we have district assessments, so we'll chat a
Right.
little bit later on in leadership
Yep.
about our own data and the assessments that we collect. So this is one data source, one assessment that our students take, versus other multiple data points that we use to determine if a student's on track or making progress or meeting end-year benchmarks. I also think it's more than just a test that demonstrates a student's progress or mastery of skill.
We also assess with different forms of assessment. So it's not just one assessment, like one type like this one is. There are different ways that we assess in the classroom.
Well, I would definitely like to learn more about this because it makes no sense to me
Sure.
at all. Back in my day, we had CAT test, Connecticut aptitude testing,
CAPT, yes.
something like that.
Connecticut Academic Performance Test, and then CMT before that, Connecticut Mastery Test. Yep.
Right. But, I mean, I don't remember the majority of students not being able to pass that.
That was before the standards changed as well. I gave those tests. That's so back in your day, I was doing this. But then the standards changed, and they went to Connecticut Core, Common Core, Next Generation Science standards, and the assessments changed. And when the assessments changed, it became Smarter Balanced, and this has been the result. So it's a different. There are different standards. There's different assessments. It used to be. You remember it was a paper pencil test, right? So this is, an online test as well, which is different for a lot of kiddos to take. I mean, they're used to it now, but it was different in the beginning.
Well, if there's ever an opportunity to learn more about this, I want to know.
got
Mr.
it.
Anderson, I just emailed everybody the link to the EdSite website where all of this information is on there, and there's lots of data on the State Department website on kind of how these indicators are measured, comparisons to other districts.
I'm aware of how they're measured. As far as that goes, I'm well versed in that. It just makes no sense.
We
On the
can
numbers
set up a time similar to what we did when we explained sort of the budgetary documents and things like that. We can have you come in, sit down with Michelle and I, and we can go through and try to do a little professional development session. Hopefully that will help. If not, you can give us any other questions you may have, and we can try to answer those for you.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
Yep. Mr. Gauss, I had seen your hand first.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yep.
I have a couple questions. Obviously, you know where I'm going to go with this. So post-secondary preparation and post-secondary readiness, it looks like those are strictly evaluating the path to college. Are those negatively affected by kids that won't be going to college?
Okay, that's a difficult question, but here's going to be my response. So, yes, the dual enrollment piece is either enrolled in a college course, so like the UConn ECE courses, but also when we had our Nantucket partnership with the manufacturing and the welding, those counted too. That percentage is the percentage of students that are taking advantage of a course like that. The test scores, like I said, have the SAT in there. So yes, students that have no interest in going to college are in those scores. Students who are going to college are in those scores too. Students that are in AP are in those scores.
Understood. It's just one of those things, we're people that have gone to trade schools understand that is also a difficult task and path.
Absolutely.
And if that isn't included and our scores look like they're lower, then those kids' effort isn't being reflected properly.
I hear what you're saying, and they might be opening that indicator up a little bit. I know they're doing work on pathways and what those look like, and I know they're trying to talk about how they get those other opportunities to be reflected in here. Whether or not that's actually going to happen in the next year, I don't know, but there's going to be new CTE pathways coming out, I believe in March. And then they're trying to do some work with that and giving schools credit for that type of work as well, more credit than they're actually getting. So there are those discussions happening. I just don't know where they land at this point.
Okay. And then my second question, it kind of has to do with something we discussed at the last curriculum meeting. So
Thinking about the last curriculum meeting, go ahead.
I'll explain it. It's easy.
Okay.
So we discussed posting the curriculum online.
Yes.
To give parents and students, is that a part of the plan? In order
We will
to-
have trying to think of what we're calling it exactly. Scope and sequence, but yes, it will be online by July 1.
Perfect. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Kober.
All right. Thank you, Assistant Superintendent Middleton, for coming in. I think this is definitely like an important topic. It's hard to kind of cram it in one night. I know we got a lot going on, so I don't want to keep you too long. I was actually, earlier in the week, I was trying to browse some of our EdSite indicators just to kind of understand everything a little more. And I was looking, because you spoke to the values of like the points. So I just kind of wanted to like bring up like kind of how they're weighed, and like indicators 1 and 2 are the most significant. Like indicator 2 overall can give you like 400 points, but then you get down like physical fitness and arts access, and the weight value is only like 50 points. You can kind of see that big difference where even if you're doing great in those two, potentially it doesn't make a difference on the overall indicators. I do think it's interesting, and to like Mr. Anderson's point, is kind of like where we're at with the state, and maybe to like a layperson, some of these things do look pretty low. When you're talking numbers like in the 40s, 50s, 60s, out of 100 students and only 40 are scoring proficient, I mean, that could be kind of worrisome and stuff. So I did kind of go back to, I had EdSite open actually while you were talking to, and I went back 10 years. And it's interesting, in 2014 and 15, like the state and Enfield, we were basically on point. Our overall indicator accountability index was at 76.1. And since that, we've been within like 0 or 2 points kind of as it has gone up and down. Obviously, everybody kind of took a little dip in COVID to like the current most recent year where the state's at 71.8 and we're at 69.9. So, I mean, 2 points, it's not terribly far. I think what's interesting is obviously this is what got us labeled as the Alliance District, and that's caused a lot of discourse and conversation. Obviously, is the funding aspect, but also just kind of in the community, like, why are we doing so bad comparatively to the state? But it's interesting to see that we haven't really been that far behind. I guess it's just when you compare us to the other 170 school districts that were in that bottom third. So I think that was interesting. I did want to ask, because you touched on the district improvement plan.
Sure.
And you kind of brought up some of the things. So are any of those actually tied to like the indicators? Like, are we trying to set a goal? I know with like chronic absenteeism and leave, like we're trying to reduce the numbers down, set percentage a little more. But kind of like with some of the others, are we setting like numerical goals per se?
Okay. Yes and no. In our district improvement plan for this year, we do not have numerical goals because we're basically at a baseline. However, in our Alliance grant that we submitted to the state, some of these indicators that relate are in there, and there are numerical goals in there, and that's online as well. Those are based off of the ESSA targets that the state set for Enfield. So some of them might be achievable, and some of them might not be achievable in 1 year. So there's that piece. So.
Yeah, and I do recall it. I forget if it was you or we had a couple people deliver the Alliance grant presentation, and I kind of remember like with the SMART goals and stuff like that. So that was, I think, important. And I know obviously that's separate, but they are kind of all tied together.
Everything
obviously
is kind of tied. I was going to break this out by aligning the indicators to the district improvement plan goals, but then I realized that they're all tied together, because everything we have in a district improvement plan is increasing supports for teachers and students, and you can't make any of those indicators go up if you don't have the supports in place for the students that are in front of us. So that's kind of why I broke it down into data and then talking about what we were doing.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. That definitely does. So, and just to clarify too, because with the Smarter Balance assessment, we talked about the proficiency. Do you know off the top of your head, I just didn't get a chance to look it up, like what are the categories? Obviously there's proficient, so I'm assuming there's above proficient, below proficient, but is there like four or five exact labels?
Yeah.
And do you happen to know what they are?
It's so hard because we also have the diagnostic. So basically you have something like a 1, which would be like developing, and then a 2 would be like nearing, getting close. 3 would be proficient, and 4 would be exceeding.
Okay, so and then
I'm
the
not
scores.
sure if that's the exact terminology. I apologize, but I was just doing data for something else, and I was looking at iReady and EasyCBM.
No, that's
and
fine.
None
And
of them have the same 4 levels.
Of course, that would be too easy. But that's kind of what I was picturing in my head. So when we go to the proficiency, and again to like Mr. Anderson's point that say it's 1, 2, 3, 4. We only have those students scoring 3 and 4, and the rest are either 1 or 2. So I think it would be interesting, and also to, as Chairwoman Cook had said, and Superintendent Macchio, like it may actually behoove us to, I know I use the phrase workshop with other things, but even maybe like an accountability index workshop, and then maybe dive into and compare some of that to like our other testing and see like how students are scoring. Because if they're nearing proficiency, then it's like, all right, they just need a little push, versus if we're far below, then it makes us a case that we need to really like dive in and get to the bottom of it. And then I did just want to touch on, I know obviously HR is not your forte, but I thought that was interesting. I know we've talked about it with budget, and I think that's kind of an important thing like moving forward. So I'm glad that's in our plan. I'm kind of glad you touched on it, because like position control obviously budget-wise is good, but then also like talent management and just kind of keeping track of that I think is really important. So I just kind of wanted to put that out there. But again, thanks for coming in. I know there was kind of a lot you did, and again, we could really dive into it. I think a workshop would be a great idea on this, but it's obviously not going to happen tonight, so thank you.
Thank you.
I would just add that presenting the information and presenting what we go through, because the work of this, what you're asking for, is what Michelle and her staff are doing every day. So I think it's to have a workshop to have the board trying to come up with the answers to these solutions, I would just pause on, because I think it's different to do that than for us to provide sort of the professional development, for lack of a better way of saying it, for the board to understand how all of the different pieces are sort of working together. Because again, the role for the board is the governance piece. The role for Michelle and her staff is how we're going to work our way through that. So I have no problem. We can absolutely put together sort of a training, if you will, in terms of, so we can dive deeper into the accountability index. And like you had mentioned, Mr. Anderson, about how all the different pieces, because there's scores in here that talks about just, for example, their performance scores. Well, I'll be honest, when I look at those, I don't look at those as much as I'll look at the growth scores.
Right.
Because for me, that's the most important piece, because that's down to the student. Every student in Enfield is provided a indicator that they need to try to achieve to obtain their personal growth. And then when they go off and they take the test, it's a yes or a no. Did you hit it or did you not hit it? So that's the level that I think that we're working on and getting to. It's a huge spider web, for lack of a better way of saying it. So it is something we can work on, but I think we'll probably, in leadership, maybe brainstorm a little bit about what exactly that could look like.
Thank you, Mr. Macchio. And actually, I was going to follow up on that because we've been chatting about data that we have and how we use that data in decision making. And in leadership, we will be reviewing some data reporting and more meaningful ways to share data to help us and our community understand what we're doing and the impact that we're having. So I think we will be having some little mini workshops, even in board meetings. The other piece that I wanted to add is the importance of growth. I attended a training this year by the performance office that is your biggest bang for your buck, because it really is about the individual student and ensuring they get as far as they can and meet their growth targets, and you actually get more points in that indicator for kids meeting their growth targets. So I think that is a really important piece, and it's focused on students. Ms. McGuire-Bruce.
Just real quick, I think to Phil's point, and then to you, Mr. Macchio, I mean, this is why it's so important during our budget conversations that we're intentional about directing the resources towards those key priorities. Like, that is our role of the governance body, and making sure that we're thinking about the intention and the direct support for struggling learners to get the best bang for our buck with that growth. So that goes right back to our next conversation of budget and making sure that we're on top of that and looking at the right places for the impact.
Any other questions from members? Mr. Anderson?
The college readiness, college stuff, are technical schools considered a college?
Well, not a technical high school, though.
No, like someone goes to a trade school, like.
Yes.
Has to be any 2 or 4 year
Yep.
school will
Yep.
count towards that. If you go straight off into a
Yeah.
career, you're not going to obtain points. But if you go to any type of 2-year program
Yep.
or 4-year program, it will impact that
Yes.
indicator.
Mr. Gauss?
So most technical schools are 1 year. So where does that place them?
That places them as not helping the indicator.
Yeah. But
That's kind of,
Yeah, no, listen, you guys.
that indicator, yeah.
This is one of the most frustrating things
Yeah.
about the state is the numbers game that we are playing.
Yeah.
Because it should be about growth, like I said earlier, right? It should be about every child's individual growth. The child wants to go off to a trade school and they want to be successful at that trade school. We need to make sure they have the skills and readiness to be able to do that.
Right.
There's a lot of numbers that we're throwing at the state because the state tells us that we have to. Sorry, Chair Pickett, I know you work for them. But there's also a reason why they're starting to come to a realization that they're too heavily weighing some of these indicators because they're not providing the outcomes that they truly feel as though they should.
And that's the reason why that indicator is not one that that's just student choice. That's not, to me, like you said, if they go to a 1-year school and then they go out and they work, or if they just go into the workforce, that's right for that kid.
And it's also,
Well, and-
the sad part is that socioeconomics comes into this,
Absolutely.
right?
sure.
If you come from a high poverty area and your family cannot afford to send you to a 2-year or 4-year school, you're going to directly impact the accountability index. And that's just, I could get on the soapbox,
Yeah.
but I'm going to press.
No, my point was always just that, they're kids that are not going to a 2 or 4 year school are being treated as if they're failures, and that's not the case. A lot of
Absolutely.
them have more earning potential going to a year of trade school or to your
Absolutely.
apprenticeship.
We're not doing that, though.
Right.
Like that, we're not the.
No, I understand.
Yeah,
that.
okay,
I'm
just saying.
Yeah, just saying that
I
those
know.
numbers are kind of messed up.
Agreed.
All right. I'm going to thank you again, Ms. Middleton. I look forward to having additional conversations moving forward. I also think there's some pretty good curriculum conversations that we can be having. I'm concerned by the number of students passing our post-secondary courses or passing the exams. We've talked about in curriculum, even we made some adjustments to like the culinary class to make sure
Right.
kids are taking those
Right.
like things. So I think that's a continued conversation around how do we, it's not just about taking the class because it really, we want the kids to get the actual
Right.
credit.
Right.
The other piece I think is MTSS. I love the work that we're doing around multi-tiered systems of support. That's a huge area of growth for us. I'm excited to learn more about kind of what interventions we're adding, what supports are needed. I do think that's another budgetary conversation. Same thing with LEAP. I'm hoping to hear an update on that data and how those home visits are going, impact that we're having there. A couple other pieces that I just want to highlight. I loved hearing that we're going to include staff on our walkthroughs. This is an opportunity for our staff to learn from each other, provide feedback to each other, and also I see a lot of times we have islands of excellence. You can walk
Exactly.
into an amazing classroom, and you only know that amazing classroom if you get the chance to visit it. And I think we could turn into whole schools of excellence if we had more of those opportunities, along with some differentiated PD and support. So thank you. We will have continued conversations in leadership about how we can share this information. And I encourage folks to look at the link at the bottom of the Accountability Index website on EdSite. There are professional learning PowerPoints and opportunities to learn more. So encourage the public and us to take advantage of those. So thank you. A timely presentation for our budget discussion. All right. Moving on to our superintendent's report and our student reps. Again, it's an important meeting. Please feel free to chime in. And I believe we start with our senior.
Good evening, everyone. So not a lot to report on tonight, but I want to start off with something that's really awesome. The girls basketball team have their CCC tournament tomorrow at 6 p.m., and they ended up finishing first in their division in regular season. I believe they finished 17-3. I don't want to cut them short, but that's what I heard. I know we've talked about this a bunch, but we had 2 performances by the Blues and Beyond to demonstrate music throughout the civil rights movement. Unfortunately, I was not able to attend the assemblies, but I heard they were great, and the students loved them. A lot of active music and participation throughout the crowd. We just wanted to bring awareness that many students are celebrating Ramadan at this time. Students, you have been emailed about information on supports that are available at school. And just one final note, I'm going to keep saying this every meeting until the due date, but seniors, make sure you are applying for scholarships. Most are due on April 10th, so there's plenty of time to pick some up. There's probably right now like at least 50 scholarships in there for all different career pathways after high school, so just make sure to go through the guidance offices and get as many as you can completed.
I can attest to how good the Blues and Beyond was. Oh, it was so good. But in other news, on Thursday, the high school is having a blood drive in the gym, and students can sign up using the QR codes in the cafeteria. Something very fun is that on Friday, Enfield Music Night at the Thunderbirds game will be happening. So Chamber Orchestra is going to be performing God Bless America. Honors Choir will sing the national anthem pregame, and band will be performing in the stands during the game. Additionally, we had a panel discussion for the future of education last week on the 17th, where students, parents, and teachers worked together to discuss various topics about learning and careers. And for our juniors, prom tickets are going to be on sale soon. So in a few weeks from March 4th to March 11th, students can buy tickets in the cafeteria during lunch. Thank you.
All right, and as you guys know, we sent out a follow-up survey regarding student concern for college and career preparation. We sent out a survey a couple of months ago, and the biggest concern for students was college and career readiness. So we wanted to send out another survey to get a little bit more in depth with those, exactly what students were concerned about. The 3 areas ranked most important by students, and this is students from grades 9 to 12, were increasing opportunities for students to learn about applying to college, which was 82%, improving student preparation for the SAT, which was 80%, and increasing field trips tied to career exploration, which was 73.9%. So these field trips included students from the trades to the more like college-based jobs. So we, as students, wanted to take some steps within the school to assist with these concerns. Avery's going to tell us a little bit more about those.
Yeah, so we're planning a panel, like she said, so students can learn about these, like possible career and college options. So we wanted to invite people like working in the trades, people serving in the military, and even like college students who have gone through the college application process, just so like seniors, juniors, and even sophomores can just learn about their potential futures they could have. And we just want to give an informative experience so students can feel that they're more prepared.
This panel is going to take, I forget the date. It's at the end of May, though. So, yeah, like Avery said, we are going to try and have students that are maybe just finished their first year in college. We're going to try and have students that have maybe gone through a trade program, students that have served in the military already, and seniors like myself who have already gone through the college application. We're kind of going to have like a general panel just to answer some general questions, and then we're thinking of like breaking up into breakout groups depending on what exactly you're interested in, just to provide more information. So we will provide more information to you guys once we get closer to that date and we get more information on it. I think that's all for us tonight. Thank you.
I want to thank you both. This has just been like my favorite part of our meeting. I think one is to hear that you are getting information directly from students and then sharing that information with us. Some of your college and career conversation goes right into our budget conversation, but also that you're taking action, that it's not just about getting information and sharing it, but you yourselves as student leaders are putting together action steps. So thank you both. Thank the students who are supporting this and all of the students at EHS for participating in the survey and giving their feedback. It is incredibly meaningful for us to hear from students. So thank you so much. Steve, they stole your thunder. They can just do the superintendent's report from now on. I assume we're not hearing from you, that we will hear from you during our possible budget adoption on item 10B?
Yeah, I think similar to last week, and as we're probably going to see moving forward with the 9000 series, a lot of my comments are going to happen under superintendent's reports or new business or old business. So for those just listening in, 2 snow days, just as a reminder, that means we add those days onto the end of the year. We were June 11th, now we're June 15th if we stay for 181 days. Keep your fingers crossed because we got a long 2 weeks coming.
Thank you. And I will add, there might be some decisions around the 181 day, but we will wait to see what winter brings us before making those decisions. All right, on to public comment. Good evening. Thanks for joining us. Just Maureen, but she gets to hear my spiel anyways. A few reminders before we begin. Each speaker is going to have 4 minutes. Share your name and relationship to the district. It's a time for your comments, not a conversation or Q&A with the board. Our role is governance for the district, so frame your comments accordingly. And also remember that this becomes part of public record, so keeping with confidentiality, please keep personally identifiable student information or specific personnel matters which can't be addressed in this public forum. We thank you for continuing to come and sharing your feedback.
Maureen Griffin, mom. Mr. Gauss, I agree with you 100%. Any track coming out of high school that helps someone support themselves, helps them build a life is a success. I agree with you 100%. Thank you for always pushing that because people need to realize that. Regarding the, I'm all over the place here. Regarding the metric based on the SAT, that is such a useless metric. It's once a day, one time. Some kids aren't great test takers. There's bias in the testing. It's a useless, I'm sorry. So I appreciate that it's not really taken as this great, big, important thing because progress is what we're looking for. Let's see. Imagine the future. That forum, I went to that, and it was really great. The panel had people from manufacturing, education, all sorts of careers, talking about what they are looking for in graduates and giving ideas of where the shortfalls are and helping people to realize what the modern world needs out of the graduates. It was really good. I appreciate the people that put the time into putting it together, the kids who came to it and really were part of it. It was great. And also the community members that were part of the panel. I very much appreciate it. Another thanks I want to make is the teachers at Enfield High, right now, the seniors are in high stress. It's, you put in your applications if you're going to college, you're waiting to hear, and they're really stressed. And a lot of the teachers are multitasking. They're teaching in the classroom, but they're also being a support system for the kids. They're being counselors, but not really counselors, but they are being there for the kids and supporting them and encouraging them and giving them the space to, I think you'd agree, vent when they need to. And they need to be acknowledged for that. I just want to say thank you to them for that. And one of the things that the panelists were talking about was field trips to the manufacturing places and how some in other countries their classes are actually held in factories in some areas so that they really get a fullness of what they might be looking at, so they have an idea before they go to a school and get halfway through it and realize, oh, this is not what I want. 1, 2, 3, 4. And the thing about recruiting and how HR is working on that. One way you all can really help out with recruiting is to let potential hires know that Enfield values and invests in our schools. So please pass the budget. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. We will move on to board member comments. Mr. Kober.
All right. Thank you, Madam Chair. So given our earlier presentation and some important business forthcoming, I'll keep my comments relatively short, maybe not as quick as some others, but try to be efficient and expeditious. So I hope everyone out there is well rested given yesterday's snow day. I did want to thank the superintendent for making and disseminating that decision early Sunday afternoon, which gave students, staff, and families time to prepare for the day off. Today's 3-hour delay with notice last night, I think, was also a good call given the conditions. Since I know many of us up here on the board have had constituent questions, communications, and have probably seen stuff in social media regarding decisions on weather-related closing and delays, I did want to share that the authority to make that decision is fully delegated to the superintendent of schools, and that is referenced in our BOE policy number 2131. Just to share a little more information, and Superintendent Macchio, if you want to chime in and correct me at any point, the decision to delay starting or to close school is a complex process, primarily focused on student and staff safety. This decision-making process involves evaluating weather conditions, consulting with safety officials, considering logistical constraints, and communicating with the community. Additionally, the superintendent may look to or coordinate with neighboring districts and consider the operational readiness of our contracted transportation provider. I want to give a shout out and thank you to all the essential employees that were out the last 2 days, especially to our town DPW workers that were out plowing roads, clearing parking lots and sidewalks, specifically at our school buildings as they take care of our grounds. As a general reminder and public service announcement, it's very important that local residents and property owners please take the time to clear your own sidewalks, especially given we have students that walk to school or they walk to the bus stop, and we want to make sure they can safely make that trek. While you're out there, don't forget your fire hydrants or utility service connections as well if they are on your property. So following our short week last week, together with the effects of Blizzard Calvin, February is now almost behind us. March being just around the corner, I wanted to highlight some observances. March is National Nutrition Month, a time to focus on promoting healthy and eating habits. March is also Developmental Disabilities Awareness Month, an annual campaign led by the National Association of Councils on Developmental Disabilities and partners designed to highlight inclusion, contributions, and potential of people with developmental disabilities. Established back in 1987, it focuses on removing societal barriers and fostering inclusive communities. March will also be National Social Work Month, a time to recognize the dedication and empathy social workers across the country deliver while providing services to children and adults in need. Social workers provide a voice for equal rights for the weakest of us and connect us to resources when we are in need. March is also National Athletic Training Month, a time to focus on the impact of athletic trainers and what they have on the safety and well-being of their clients and patients. For those perhaps not familiar, athletic trainers offer expert care and are considered trained medical professionals. They work in a variety of settings, provide preventative services, rehabilitation, and in some cases, emergency services. And lastly, I do want to make sure we don't forget, March is also Board of Education Appreciation Month. Next, yes. Next week, March 2nd to March 6th, Enfield Public Schools will be celebrating Read Across America Week. Each day has a specific theme, with Friday being Guest Reader Day. Additionally, International Read to Me Day this year will be March 19th. So parents, keep an eye on school communications that your students may receive. Teachers and staff may be reaching out with invitations for special guests to come in and read. I know several of us on the board have received them. As mentioned during public comment last meeting, and I believe there was Parent Square message about it, I did just want to echo, there is a trivia night coming up for the First Readers Association of Enfield. Will be held this Saturday, February 28th, 2026 at 7 p.m. at the Mount Carmel at 93 Park Ave. Please review the flyer or go to firstreaders.org for additional information or to purchase your tickets. With March around the corner, spring conferences are also coming up. Notifications have been sent out via Parent Square. Do note, if you have multiple students in different grades, they are held at different times. PK through 5 will be on March 11th. High school students will be evening conferences on March 12th. JFK will be evening on March 18th. Moreover, as a public reminder, the board also approved our calendar for 26-27 school year, and that is posted to our website, enfieldschools.org. There is a menu ribbon that just says calendar, and if you click that, that will give you the current calendar and next year's calendar. Since tonight's big business is financials, I will offer up a quote from the ancient philosopher Seneca. "It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more that is poor." Before yielding my time, I did have two questions that I wanted to pose through the board chair to the superintendent. The additional funding that we allocated back in January had the 5th grade instrumental music program teacher. I know you gave us a brief update on when that was. I just didn't know if you could publicly talk about if that position has been filled, and are we starting that program this year?
I believe I sent that as part of a weekly update. Filled. First day on the job, I believe, is next Monday, March 2nd.
And when will students be able to start taking class?
I'll check my email, but I know it was all referenced within that.
Okay. And then also with that allocation, I know we had the property that we ordered for the elementary schools and the high school. Can you speak to just, has that stuff been ordered? Has it come in yet? And just kind of where we're at?
In process. Quotes were received for the Library Media Center at the high school. I believe Corey has gone ahead and put in the purchase order for the soccer goal. So we're sort of in limbo in a few of the different places, but the main one being the Library Media Center, because that's a large amount of furniture. Absolutely. And as I should also say, the 4 or 5 different classrooms of furniture were also in process.
I will give an update on your music question. I have that as a Parkman parent.
Yes, perfect.
So February 26th, both Ms. Gagnon and Mr. Spoldy are going to be visiting students. So that's at Parkman, but my guess is this week they're visiting all the 5th grade classes across the district. And the music program will start the week of March 9th. Families need to fill out a form if they're interested. So that is starting.
Awesome. That's great news. And again, I'm glad we got the update. I just want to publicly share that we were able to get that, fill that, and have students enroll with it in a timely manner. So last question through the board chair to the superintendent. This also relates to something in the weekly update. You shared some memorandum from the CSDE to EPS subjected high rates of suspension and school discipline, a professional learning opportunity that I believe you and the deputy superintendent are planning to attend. Could you just speak to, I guess, what that is, where that came from, and where it's going to go?
As I think we mentioned earlier this evening, the State Department collects a lot of information about a lot of different things. So one of the breakdowns was related to our suspension rate over the course of the last few years, and specifically discrepancies seen in terms of minority groupings. So while our suspension rate had decreased by 4%, from 19% or from 19 down to 15. We were still an outlier in terms of the rest of the districts across the state. So they provide us with some information that we can go off to. They invite us to go to a professional development opportunity. So myself, Mr. Longy, and we'll probably be having some conversations with the secondary schools, because that's where the most of the suspensions would occur. And we're going to go off and listen to hear some professional development to see what what, if anything, differently we can be doing. I would also just acknowledge the work that's already happening in terms of the restorative practices work, the Joe Brummer work, and then actually I believe we received a potential professional development session/webinar that's going to be hosted by a professor from Brown University that I think Mr. Longy and I are also going to be going to. So right now we're sort of in data collection phase, if you will, related to what, if any, next steps we can take.
Awesome.
And I
Outstanding.
just shared with the board the EdSite link to the discipline tiers information. That is also all publicly available.
Perfect. Outstanding. All right. That is all I had for tonight. Thank you.
Ms. McGuire Bruce.
Just real quick, we're talking about scholarships. Little plug here. Enfield 4th of July celebration has a scholarship. It's the Norma Post Scholarship. It's not due until May. And we also have a dance coming up on March 7th at 6 o'clock at the Enfield Elks if anyone's interested in attending.
Any other board comments? All right, I'll finish us out. Again, I'm going to praise our student reps here. I love hearing from you all, so please continue that engagement. On March 5th, there is Music Fest, which is going to celebrate all of our students from high school to JFK and our 5th grade interschool students who participated in that program. That is at the high school. I cannot wait for Read Across America celebrations. I am taking my birthday to do lots of reading across town, so I cannot wait. And I'm going to second Phil's comments about our snow procedures and thank yous to DPW and Buildings and Grounds, and encourage our community to ensure that your sidewalks are cleared and careful around those snowbanks. We do have lots of walkers. I was by JFK this afternoon, and there's a lot of kids and a lot of tall snowbanks, so please be careful. All right, we are moving on to unfinished business. We do have the second reading of the 9000 series. We are not going to be doing that until our next meeting on March 10th, so no action on that tonight. And we will move on to the review and possible adoption of the fiscal year 27 budget.
All right, I'm just gonna, where's the man, the myth, the legend, Alex? There's not a lot of changes to this, so as I did last time, I'm just going to quickly go through in terms of what those changes actually are. Again, so this evening, hopefully, we will be able to have an approved budget that we can send down to the town manager. It is due down at the end of this week. What we have put together, sort of the current status of the budget request. Again, we still have months to go through this process, even from the time we're at now to the time we likely present to town council. There's possible shifts that will occur. Those will not get incorporated into any portion of the budget. I sort of hold those off to the side because as soon as this becomes the Board of Education approved budget, it is your budget. As of it stands right now, this is sort of my proposed budget in terms of working through the administrative team. Just quickly, in terms of the presentation itself, really not a lot of changes. I'm not going to go ahead and change the mission and the equity statements, the accomplishments, the budget priorities, sort of no changes on any of those, and no changes in terms of the budget assumptions. Budget development timeline, we're not changing. And really, we get to the overall recommendations. So where we came in for this proposal is really, I tried to bring it back to where we were before we brought in the additional allocation. So the overall recommendation as we stand today is 4.97%. That does include the $285,000 appropriation from the town council. Again, you'll see those in the 100s, the 200s, and the 700s line. And as I mentioned before, the adjustments will continue to come through. Where are those changes? While I don't have a slide up in terms of the overall presentation, the budget history page, which everybody has been provided and which will also be included in the packet that will go on the district website, really breaks it down. But if we wanted to go through and look at it, there was no shift in terms of the drivers of the budget. Our drivers are going to always remain the same. it's going to be salaries, and it's going to be benefits. So really, one of the main changes in the budget drivers is we did have, as I mentioned last board meeting, we had potentially an additional outplacement or two that were going to be occurring. Those have now been factored into the budget. While nothing has been finalized, we are comfortable enough to know that those are going to be items that we're going to need to include and need to fund. So the outplacement line has increased by 0.14%, now at 3.31%. So there is one of the items that has shifted. The student enrollment, no changes related to anything around that nature. But when you look at the FTE proposed report, you're going to see a couple of different pieces here. So the last time we had proposed increasing from 855.75 staff members to just over 862-ish, I believe. So this increase that we have included here would bring our staffing total to 869. Let's call it 0.5, because I don't know how you get 0.46 of an FTE, but that's the way that the numbers work out. And really the changes here are again, taking some feedback from the board in terms of what had been mentioned. We have brought, or I have been able to incorporate in two of the academic tutors at each of the primary schools. I look at it as a bridging of the gap for that first year. This, again, I think, as I mentioned before, this is not something that I would look at maintaining for long term. I think the instructional coaches will be a tremendous amount of assistance in this area, but for next year, we would be looking at the 6 academic tutors being brought back in. That's half as many as did exist in that area. But again, I was trying to be cognizant of the overall budget percent that we would be sending downtown. The other item that came up a lot last meeting when we were talking was in terms of the Career Center and the fact that we do have, as part of our proposal, a post-secondary and adult education coordinator, which, as we mentioned, would not be able to staff that Career Center at all times. They may have evening hours, so they'll be coming in a little bit later in the day. And I did mention as a possible solution, if we could potentially bring somebody in to have them staffed in that area, to have that Career Center staffed at all times. So we did bring in a non-union position, call it a Career Center specialist, look at it as sort of the right-hand man, if you will, for the post-secondary and adult education coordinator. It would allow somebody to be in that area at all times. Students would be able to come in and out. Likely some more flexibility for them. I also look at it as a person who could potentially be able to coordinate some of those field trips I think that we had heard about before. Not exactly the way the Career Center was run in the past, but again, a step moving back towards that area. I did have a very wonderful meeting with one of the former Career Center professionals today, where we went through and we talked about a lot of those different pieces, and a lot of what she's talking about, I believe we can begin to incorporate if I do have the full-time staff member as well as the post-secondary and adult education coordinator. A lot of coordination. David White was there, Andy Longy was there with me, and then there would have to be, as I mentioned last meeting, there would still be required a lot of coordination with the with the school counseling people that we currently have. So that's where you're going to see your major FTE report changes. I just updated the numbers in terms of your yearly FTE. Your priority number 1 page, I added the information here for the full-time staffing in the high school career center, including that career center specialist. Updated the rationale and priority number 1 related to that. I will note I did remove the no dollar impact in the career center. I think you remember there used to be a dollar sign with the strike through there. Obviously, that's not necessarily the case if we're adding staffing in. We felt as though we could do it at no cost. There will be some cost. That's why your budget went up, right? So just why those changes occurred. K-5 class sizes, no changing at that. We're still sort of on a watch in certain areas related to that. I know one of the questions was related to that watch and what if we do need to add somebody in. We're currently looking at ways that we may be able to possibly open up a few of the special sections by coordinating other areas. I think right now we have 2 sections possible over the course of the week, so if we could open up a few more, when and if it's needed, we're trying to be a little proactive in terms of our thinking related to that. But again, this would be a piece that, we're going to need to look at sort of attacking in the future. Class sizes are still incorporated in that. I'm meeting the same demands as I had said I would meet last year. We will continue to watch in terms of the enrollment. Priority number 2, no changes here related to people being added in. The instructional coaches, still 3, 1 at each of the primary schools. We still have the special education teacher for the adaptive learning program, trying to spread those kids out a little bit and have smaller class sizes. It's interesting that folks had brought up the English language learners and the ML learners, because here's one of the main reasons that we have it in the budget is their numbers and those caseloads are continuing to increase. I can think of a handful of kids just in the last few weeks that we've had enter into the district and who qualify for these services. So again, nice job of the segue there for us. Because it is an absolute growing need within the district. I didn't need to update anything about the rationale behind priority number 2. There's really no change there. And priority 3, I don't think I need to say it anymore, but I'm really trying to build the budget that will be able to be sustained over time. I am incredibly cognizant of this is a reevaluation year for the town. My personal story, my own son has a offer in on a home in Enfield, and I had to explain to him that what he sees as taxes right now will not be his taxes next year, should he be successful in obtaining this home, because the reevaluation is going to occur. So I really want to just think about that over time, what we can do, because I don't want to get into that situation of adding to just take away. And I don't want to get into the situation of having to loan my son any more money because he already went to college. No change in terms of net current expenditures. There was a question in the Q&A document. I will say Mrs. Cisneros is back from her vacation, and we did sit down and look at this. The hardest part about net current expenditures, and the reason it is always a year behind, is because it bases it on all of your expenditures. So there's a number of different grants that may shift or might change. We may go for additional competitive grants, not our typical entitlement grants. All of those get added into our net current expenditures. If I was to go through and look at no changes in anything else, and look at what happens to our per pupil expenditure when we do our should this budget be approved, it would come out to be about a $500 to $700 change. And that's, again, you're not going to make drastic changes in your ranking in the net current expenditures, because if we go up 4-point-something percent, 4.97%, a neighboring town might be going up 8%. But we may have different grants applying into it. So I think it's a long-term efforts that will be needed to be made to make adjustments on this, because it was a long-term problem that got us in this situation, right? So again, the answers to all of those Q&As are in there, but that was a tough one. I would love to be able to give you a true hard number, but I tried to give you at least a ballpark baseline of what you would see. And really, no other changes. I did update the grants and revenue page to reflect the updated requested appropriation. Really, total expense comes out to be about $97.4 million when you take together the requested appropriation, the anticipated grants and nutrition, as well as the anticipated revenue that we would be bringing in. That's the presentation piece. For those that are not for those that do not have the budget history page, I break it down, and again, if you go online, you'll be able to see it. Hopefully tomorrow we'll have it up there. Certified salaries, in terms, those have been updated to reflect the salaries of our new hires. We continue to hire for open positions even that exist now. For example, the music instructor that we just hired. So we hired at a particular rate. It wasn't the exact set rate that we had planned for, but we were in the ballpark. But I update because, as you heard from Ms. Middleton, position control being what it is, we have this budget is built to the individual person. So if their salary's off by $1,000, we're going to make the adjustment for the $1,000. Non-certified salaries, we did have a choice student who had moved back or moved out of Hartford into a different district. So because of that, they're no longer an open choice student. Because of they're no longer here, the BT that they may have had assigned to them is no longer necessary. They get removed. Common practice is you don't just maintain non-certified staff when children no longer require them either through IEP or whether or not they move out of town. You have a line in there that reinstates the 2 academic tutors, the 6 total across the district. The Career Center specialist is included in there at an hourly rate. I did include additional days for that position. There's 181 student days, but I included this position for 187. That's professional development. I think that's an important part for them to be at. I also think it provides them an opportunity and time to be able to get out there and to meet some of the different people, make some connections, and set up the center. So that's why there's a little additional there. Nurses' salaries, we did have an opening that we were able to fill, so you had adjustments there. We had adjustments in health and dental insurance for current employees. Somebody has a baby, all of a sudden they go from a single plan or from a single +1 to now they're on a family plan. Major shifts can occur with that, so we update those. I did reduce the health insurance, as mentioned last meeting. We had projected at 8%. After a meeting with Town Hall, we feel as though we're all going to be going in at 7%. So I was able to reduce that. That 1% reduction is about $132,000. So again, we're having a lot of good conversation about insurance, where that fund exists, what practices we want to put in place so we don't have to keep buffering it. Because every time I buffer by 1%, it's $132,000. That's a top step certified teacher with full benefits, or 2 younger teachers, depending on which way you want to look at it. Health medical plan for the career specialist is included. We adjustments for the HSAs because of the differences that have been occurring. When you have additional students going to outplacements, that means you're going to incur additional costs that are above and beyond our excess cost threshold. Because I include that as a revenue line, because we're getting money back from the state for that, we project what additional excess costs we would be receiving. So you'll see that as a negative. Just understand that while it's a negative there, you spent the money to end up getting to that point. So it's a net cost to your budget. However, I really try to drill this thing down as far as I can. We had a magnet school, magnet tuition allocations that we had to adjust for. I already talked about the outplacements. And then I made a very small adjustment for a multi-year plan for replacement radios. Those are for our individual radios that the staff will have across the district so that they can communicate within the buildings. They haven't been replaced in a number of years. So working with Mr. Crabtree and security, we're trying to put together sort of a plan where we can periodically move that through. I made a very small adjustment to the number, a $3,700 increase. I'll tell you selfishly, it was to get me to the 4.97%. Those are all of your changes that I am bringing forward as proposals.
All right, thank you,
Mrs. Middleton was nice enough to stay because she said she's answering all of my questions tonight.
All right, thank you, Mr. Macchio. Before we start with any questions or discussion, we are going to start with questions before making any motions, so that way we can have our questions answered and then make whatever motions we need to make. I want to publicly thank our Board of Ed members for utilizing that budget question document. I think it's a nice way, for us all to see kind of what folks are asking and thinking about, and allows our administration time to get the answers, give us the information we need. I want to thank Mr. Macchio and Mrs. Narros for their hard work, and the central office team. I saw lots of initials in that document providing us information, so thank you all for doing that. Again, I want to remind the public that is all posted online. I also want to thank you, Phil, as our minority leader, for your willingness to communicate with me through this process. We've had multiple conversations. I believe that we're aligned on our priorities for this budget and commitment to supporting our students. A couple things I want to clarify before we move to questions of the full board. One is clarifying that budgeting for grants in the presentation. I saw publicly online some questions about, oh, didn't we learn not to do that? And Steve, please correct me if I'm wrong here. These are entitlement grants that we've already received awards for and anticipate, like, the money's coming.
Absolutely.
Perfect. So it's not banking on a check that we don't know that we're getting. The other piece,
100%.
perfect. The other part that I want to clarify that I don't think was part of your presentation, but this budget allows for teams at all 3 levels at JFK, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade.
Yeah, I believe I mentioned that at the very first presentation and probably skipped over it the last 2, but that is the plan for the middle school to have teams at all grade levels.
Perfect. I just think that's an important thing to add. Perfect. Those are my clarifications I wanted to make. Any other questions from board members? Mr. Kober, I saw your hands. You were long last time, so I was starting with somebody else.
Awesome. Yeah, that's fine. I'll be long again later, but my questions will be, I'll keep them quick. So first question, I know you just closed out of it, but and you had spoken to it on the grants and revenue slide. So just to Superintendent Macchio, I know you did a great job breaking this out. I think I spoke a little to it last time. I was just kind of reviewing it again, and I just, for understanding on the presentation, can you confirm where, like the 2 things I was thinking of is when we draw down on the district activity account and the student activity accounts, what that is reflected under, and then also, like, for example, if we're drawing down on the tag account. I believe on that slide, it would be under the anticipated revenue column. I just don't see those explicitly stated. And I know there is some, like, object codes where we're drawing down from district activity.
Yeah, they're not shown anywhere there. They're considered offsets within the object breakdown sheet.
Okay.
So the tag account, for example, that the teacher that is paid for out of the tag account, that teacher's salary is not even included in your Board of Education budget. If you look at the FTE report, it will show as they're being paid out of a different account.
Okay, and yeah, and that one I did see it in the FTE report, and I didn't see it in the budget, and that's what I thought. I just wanted to clarify. And then also I know with certain things, like I said, we're drawing down from, like, the district activity account, the student accounts for certain things, just to, so those would be offsets.
Those are
for the object
immediate
codes.
Right. Those when we pull out of the district activity account or school activity account, those are immediate transfers that happen from the business office. So I just put them in as an offset, just so that I put them in as a note, so that you know exactly where they are, because I'm trying to show you where every dollar is coming from in terms of this. And I also want it to be there so that you can remember next year, because we're creating a small little cliff that we have to overcome, right? So for example, the technology plan, we know what it's going to take to get to a full-blown technology plan. We're paying for a portion of it out of the district activity account. Next year, when you see a larger number increase there, remember, I'm adding in the rest of it, and I'm making up for the activity account offset.
Outstanding. Yeah, and those are the 2 things I was thinking of, actually, with the drawdown on that, the technology replacement plan, and then obviously, like, sports, where we're drawing down on the account as well. So I just kind of wanted to make sure we kind of talked about that, and because it's not in the presentation, it's still covered, obviously, in the actual budget. So second question I had, and this kind of ties into something we had last week. We kind of had, like, a little joint leadership between us and the board and the town. So there were some conversations there about areas of responsibility in the buildings between the town and the board, and they talked about replacing, like, the soundboard at the auditorium, at the EHS auditorium would be ours, and then talking about, like, light fixtures. I don't know if you could recap that or just speak to it, like, how do we decide what we're paying for versus what the town's paying for?
I don't mind interjecting here. I have had some comments for our leadership update. I think those are still discussions that we're having, so.
That's fair enough. All right. And all right, I'll leave that with the questions and allow other people to continue.
Thanks. Ms. McGuire Bruce?
I just had one question. Behavior techs, are those just for our special programs, or do we have any behavior techs currently within the school to work with the general education population?
No, behavior technicians are for specialized programs only.
Okay, so we right now have no specific behavior supports for the general ed.
Correct. Behavior techs are for specialized programs only.
Okay.
The only time that we'll have behavior techs is if it's listed within the IEPs.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? I'm going to go to Mr. Anderson and then Ms. Cushman.
Question to you, do you know how much this budget increase is going to affect the town taxes on an average house?
No. So once we pass this budget, it goes over to the town council to calculate what they're going to do. So I have no idea what that increase will be. It is a $3.96 million increase. So I'm not exactly sure what mills that turns out to, but that's not a calculation that I have at this time.
Have you considered it? Have you thought about it?
That's
how much it's going to affect taxpayers?
I will generally include a mill rate increase comparison when we go to the town council. I'm just waiting to get the hard number on that because the current mill rate and what the projected would be for next year is also going to incorporate the town's budget. The town's budget hasn't been fully submitted yet, so I will put that together when we do a presentation for the council.
Because this is going to change it about $0.5 mil, give or take.
I'm not co-signing anything until I know what those numbers are.
On your home would be about $125. So, I mean, might not be much to you, but for some people, an extra $125 in their taxes is going to be a lot.
Ms. Cushman?
Last year, when we implemented the software for the transportation, you had anticipated that in the subsequent years that you may be able to realize other savings. Is that, I didn't notice that was a case this year, and could you speak to why?
Right. So when we instituted the software last year, we anticipated about 6 buses that we would be able to take offline. I know we have met the 6 buses. We may have even exceeded it. We may be at 8. We are in the process right now of actually, and we talked about it this morning at Cabinet, about pushing out information related to next year's bus runs. I know Mr. Daig is working on the walk zone map so people have a better understanding of where those zones actually are and who truly does qualify for transportation. We're also going to be sending out as part of that who wishes to have transportation. That could have potential additional savings. So if you have some buses which don't have a lot of kids on them, and we can potentially consolidate some of those runs, then there's additional savings. Every bus we can take offline is about $70,000. Okay. But it's next steps that we will be taking on. It's going to be a shift for everybody because not everyone, surprising as it may be, does their yearly update in terms of their Power School registration to make sure that their contact information is accurate, and it all happens as part of that. So there's going to be a communication event, I would say would be the best way of putting it, to try to get the word out there for people to go ahead and do that, because if we're going to build as accurate as possible transportation runs, I need to know exactly who wants to have that transportation.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Gauss?
Can I ask a quick follow-up question to the whole thing with the buses? I know it's not really budget related per se, but you mentioned who wants to use. So how will you address the people that live a 5-minute walk away that want a bus?
You have to qualify for the bus transportation per your Board of Education policy.
Okay.
However, for those folks that live beyond that 1.25 mile radius, whatever it happens to be, not everybody wants the bus. Not everybody needs the bus. Some really enjoy that quality ride in the car every morning with their parent or whoever it happens to be. So that's what I mean by who wants the bus.
Okay.
If you qualify for
Wanted to make sure that was
transportation,
out there.
no, if you qualify for transportation, that's number one. And then number two, the yes or the no, whether or not you wish to take the transportation.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? All right, we have a motion.
I make a motion to approve the superintendent's budget as presented.
Second.
I second.
All right, I'm going to say a motion by Ms. McGuire-Bruce, second by Ms. Gerard. Now we will have our discussion on the motion.
Approving a budget is never simple work. Truthfully, it has been hard to fully engage at times because there's always this underlying knowledge that no budget will ever be perfect. There will always be more needs than resources, more ideas than funding, and more that we wish that we could do for our students. But our work is not about chasing unattainable perfection. It's about steady progress and long-term vision. This budget reflects many hours of thoughtful discussion, difficult trade-offs, and a shared commitment to moving the district forward in meaningful, responsible ways. We know families in our community are feeling financial pressures that the superintendent already mentioned tonight, and $125 is a lot of money. At the same time, we see clearly what our students need to thrive and our duty to them. Holding both of those realities at once requires care, discipline, and humility. I am proud that this proposal represents incremental progress. It restores and strengthens key areas that matter for our students while remaining mindful of the responsibility we carry to our broader community. The team has worked diligently to repair some of what has been lost over time without asking any more of our community than is necessary to give our students what they deserve. That balance matters. Planning for the future, I'm thinking about a few components of our district improvement plan, and I would love to continue elevating the role of our librarians and our library programs in future budgets in relation to our ELA achievement. Some of my fondest school memories are of author and illustrator visits at Prudence Crandall. Those moments when books came alive because the people behind them were right in front of us. Those experiences shaped not just my reading skills, but my love of reading. We often say, and as a math coach, I know this to be true across all subjects, that students learn from people they like and trust. And just to be clear for any first-year teachers listening, that doesn't mean you have to be besties with your students. It means connection really matters. Joy matters, and when children associate reading with excitement and curiosity and belonging, they truly grow as readers. Kids learn to read when reading is joyful, when it feels alive, when it feels like it belongs to them. And if we are serious about improving reading achievement, we have to be equally serious about protecting and cultivating joy. I see full-time librarians as a critical part of that foundation. I would also like to see us develop a clearer framework for growing leadership from within our own system. Instructional coaches in particular should be cultivated from the talented educators already in our classrooms, the people who know our students, our families, and our community best. It is the role of the administration to intentionally identify, mentor, and develop those future leaders so that they can step into those coaching and leadership positions. When we invest in our own people, we strengthen continuity, preserve institutional knowledge, and build trust in the community. Just as importantly, we reduce the likelihood of losing exceptional educators to neighboring districts because they see no pathway for growth here. This budget is not perfect, but it is thoughtful, responsible, and it moves us forward with students at the center of our work. So for that, I am grateful, and I am proud to support it.
Thank you, Ms. Bricculio. Mr. Kober, you looked like you were ready.
I do, but I do have a lot, so if you want to let other people go first.
Back and forth.
Yeah, it's fine. You can go ahead.
Outstanding. All right. So I'll start off with a thank you to Superintendent Macchio and your team for your efforts in preparing the budget, compiling the budget books. I think this is the third copy we have, including object codes, variance notes, and addressing all questions posed by board members, especially through our interactive document. I'm glad to see that document was shared on our website. I hope the most recent updates will obviously be shared as well. And I've heard positive reviews of your responsiveness to both board members and the general public. The final percentage increase that we're looking at of the 4.97 is something I would consider more palatable than we've seen in years past. The goal of sustainable funding with measured additions of staffing and program appears reasonable. The district must set a foundation for financial predictability and long-term sustainability. We do not know what the future holds. Changing demographics, changing student needs, the state of the economy, and the PK through 5 modernization effort are just some of the factors we need to consider in our community. I found it interesting as I dug into this year's budget and compared it to previous budgets done by this board. This is not the first time the priority of sustainable funding has even been articulated. Specifically, looking back to the superintendent's proposed budget for the 22-23 fiscal year, there was a slide titled Our Philosophy, and the third bullet was called Sustainability. Ironically, however, that same budget indicated how one-time coronavirus funding was being heavily directed towards 100 and 200 line item categories. So as we talked about, non-recurring monies that were allocated to employee salaries, which is our 100 line, and employee benefits, our 200 line code. I highlight this not only to reiterate, again, lessons learned from the past, but as a reminder that doing a budget itself isn't even reinventing the wheel. We do it every year. Every school district across the state and across the country does it as well. What's important is practicing what we preach and doing it right. The school board needs to remain informed, engaged, and exercise sound oversight. It is critical to have at least 2 years of actual, clearly labeled expenses, the current year's budget numbers, the proposed budget numbers in front of you in order to allow stakeholders to make comparisons among years, recognize trends in actual and proposed spending. Details and transparency are key. Among other takeaways from years, specifically where we saw overspending, we must maintain a human resource personnel system that accurately tracks employees by location, position, and funding source, track spending relative to the approved budget, and share key data throughout the fiscal year. We should regularly conduct reviews of our district processes, protocols, and internal controls, and it seems like we are in a good track. So I prompt this for us as a reminder to stay on it. During previous year's budget processes, I had voiced concern about possible reductions through the process being reinvested in new expenses rather than having tangible savings be realized. This year, during our initial budget presentation, Mrs. Kussman had actually echoed similar sentiments. The removal of the repayment to the town pursuant to our MOU and the additional appropriation made in January did reduce the projected increase from some preliminary numbers that the superintendent had shared with both board leadership and the finance subcommittee very early in the process. At that point, we were looking at a percent increase over last year in the range of about 5.5%. Anytime we can identify efficiencies and streamline expenditures from an original budget, I'm always one to support a reduced and more measured approach to final approval. Finding additional things to spend money on just because we have it is not a technique I would support. If we do, however, identify district needs that are tethered to growth and achievement, I am more than happy to discuss and incorporate those line by line. With that in mind, I would have liked the full board to sit down for at least one budget workshop to review and discuss each object code and variance as a committee of the whole. Ideally, we would not just have the superintendent present, but also hear in person from directors and principals on their ask. This format would encourage discussion and deliberation by board members, reveal immediate consensus, and/or the desire to make any amendments in a more transparent and interactive environment. In regard to our overall budget process, comparing to other levels of government, whenever a chief executive, say the governor, proposes his budget, it usually becomes more of a handoff of the full proposal to that elected legislator or fiscal body, and similar to what we see with our town council. That draft budget then becomes fully reviewed, discussed, disassembled between various committees, sometimes commented on public hearings, and is subject to amendments, additions, removals, and becomes an entirely new and unrecognizable product. Oftentimes, political parties, caucuses, lobbies, special interest groups will propose entirely separate budgets on their own. Regardless, whenever a consensus product is brought to the floor, voted on and passed, that product then returns to the chief executive for implementation. Conversely, here in the Enfield BOE, like in years past, the product before us tonight is not so much a product of the board as it is the superintendent's proposals, one that has been updated and refined since our original presentation 4 weeks ago. I don't say this to criticize the budget process, but more to bring awareness on how our process is unique to us, how we got to this point, and some similarities and differences you may see with other organizations. While the superintendent, business manager, and district administrative council spent countless hours working on this product, the elected members of this board really spent whatever time they had individually decided to invest. Last meeting, we had a presentation on the RISE program proposed for EHS, which is part of this budget ask. This new special education program seems like a well-thought-out initiative with potential to grow and help us balance enrollment at the Eagle Academy. I am more than happy to support that. The proposed addition of a library media specialist and team leadership teacher at JFK are also specifics that I am very supportive of, especially considering our recent New England Association of Schools and Colleges, NEASC, which had identified, quote, staffing limitations in key areas, including world languages, behavioral support, and library and media services, end quote. As a reminder, those findings were presented to us publicly at our January 13th meeting, and the board had received that full report in our weekly update on January 16th. So moving from general to a couple more specific remarks regarding the budget proposal that is in front of us. While reviewing requested salaries for our administrators and central office team, I did notice a mild disparity in increased percentages between those in the Administrators Association Collective Bargaining Unit and those that aren't. Those that aren't in the unit are seeing very mildly higher percentages. While the numbers are not excessive, I'm talking less than 1%, I would be in favor of seeing consistency in those increases. Something that could be accomplished by requiring all administrators below the superintendent to be in that union, or another option, something you see in the private sector, is annual raises instead of being flat for non-union workers are tied to annual performance reviews and evaluation. While the board remains as the approval authority for the appointment of district administrators pursuant to our policy 2151, I do note that we don't actively rate or evaluate them. However, the superintendent is responsible for that. Recognizing the superintendent as manager of his direct reports, there is opportunity to collaborate for oversight, especially considering the budgetary impact of staffing. I do want to notate what has also appeared to me, at least, to be an overemphasis on the High School Career Center. While the program has high value and potential to guide students, I have also heard anecdotal stories of students only getting one appointment in their whole 4-year time to speak to a counselor and being seen less than a minute, not gaining additional insight into their post-secondary absence. I share this, again, not to protest the recommended additions to the Career Center, but to offer us a chance to reflect on the strengths and weaknesses of the Career Center as it existed and where we want to place it with our priorities. Reopening it as originally proposed with part-time coverage was not necessarily unreasonable. And if we are moving towards this full-time model, perhaps working in an annual survey of high school students to at least triage which students are actually looking for post-secondary and career guidance may be something in good order. I did want to acknowledge some correspondence members of the board and I received from the public regarding the district's talented and gifted curriculum, which included a budget proposal. While I'm not going to read it or make a specific motion or amendment regarding it, I did want to at least initiate some conversation. Ironically, we did discuss in several subcommittees, including Finance, Curriculum, and Leadership, regarding the status of and possible changes to this program. As public information, the current program was made possible by a private donation to the district, and that endowment fund serves as a separate district account independent of this appropriation. Presently, we spend about $100,000 towards that program, and a recommendation was made that we set it at a flat 5% in order to attend curriculum offerings, support educator training, and better meet the needs of learners. So I think something, as we're talking about budget, that is important for us to at least consider. During some previous meetings, notably during our additional appropriation, I had expressed concerns additionally on how we prioritize funding on, for example, our 700 property codes and furniture and fixtures. As presented now, the budget for that is 72.6 less than last year, but I note that is only due to the additional appropriation. Originally, we were looking to spend 41% increase for the dollar amount next year. So this change is because we received that extra $250,000 that we had spent for this current FY. So again, I'm not going to echo everything we already discussed, and I understand the need to address outdated furniture. However, as we look towards potential PK through 5 building renovations and referendum, elementary constructions, and we evaluate what positions and programs we want to see restored, again, I just want us to be cognizant of our budgeting priorities. I think that kind of concludes my comments. So again, I know I said a lot, but I kind of wanted to at least put it all out there. And, I look forward to moving forward on this product. Thank you.
Thank you, Phil. I do want to just make a couple quick comments regarding the mentioned you mentioning a budget workshop. So for us and the decisions that we made here during doing deliberations and discussion in public is critical for transparency. Since January, we have had presentations and public discourse. We also had the opportunity to share our questions and feedback in a publicly posted document. This process allows our central office team to thoughtfully answer our questions and for those to be publicly shared with our residents. I also want to share that our role is governance. Our superintendent and his team are responsible for presenting a budget. They, after all, are the experts and know the needs of our students and best practices in moving forward. I would not support an alternative budget or us making those decisions. Is there any other comments? I'm going to allow a student. Thank you.
Hi, so I can personally attest that, at least for me, the Career Center was so useful. I only had it available to me my freshman year, but I was actually able to meet with one of the advisors like very regularly, at least like once every few months. And we had sessions that were like at least 20 minutes. And I remember I was able to discuss things like my classes, like careers I could go into, and also like the field trips that the Career Center provided were so useful. I was able to like literally explore everything from like manufacturing, teaching, like with the second grade students, and just it was so useful for me. And pretty much everyone I've talked to about it also agree that it's like just very useful. And I just think it's something that a lot of students want to see, because when I talk to people I know, a lot of people are kind of just like confused about where they want their future to go. And I just think the Career Center's ability to provide field trips to us among just like career panels, it's just a very valuable experience for students. So thanks.
It was also highlighted in your survey. Go ahead, Olivia.
I would also like to add on, in regards to your question, Mr. Kober, the survey we sent out September, October, that was a bunch of concerns that had anything to do with school cleanliness, to preparation in class, to how teachers are teaching, to restoring the Career Center. And the top concern for all students was restoring the Career Center. So I feel like that kind of answers your question a little bit. It was the top concern in regards to all concerns that students could have. To add on, the Career Center did meet with every student individually. And I feel like it's the role of Enfield Public Schools to provide these services to students, but it's really up to the student to do what they will with them. I know many students that used it more than once. I mean, of course, if you could have a meeting with the Career Center and not do anything with it, but I know they do personally reach out based off what you select for your interests and what you're looking to go into. They will reach out to you for guest speakers, field trips. So it really is up to the student to take advantage of those opportunities.
Thank you. Ms. Kiner.
Thank you. I'd like to begin by expressing my sincere appreciation to our superintendent and his administrative team for the tremendous amount of work, time, thought, and care that went into developing this proposed 26-27 budget. Crafting a responsible budget in challenging fiscal times requires difficult decisions, and I recognize the effort to balance student needs with long-term sustainability. I appreciate the superintendent's thoughtful approach in being purposeful about not adding positions that cannot be sustained in future years. And I also understand that when we add a classroom teacher to address class size concerns, we must also account for additional specialists to meet the required prep time outlined in the ETA contract. These are some of the interconnected realities that make budgeting so complex. I am very grateful to see the strong support for our special education students reflected in this proposal. Meeting their needs is both a moral and legal obligation, and I am pleased that this budget prioritizes providing them with the services they need to thrive. However, at the same time, I remain concerned that our elementary class sizes are still too large for teachers to adequately meet the diverse academic and social emotional needs of their students. When we factor in the behavioral challenges that can disrupt instruction, it becomes even clearer that additional supports such as social workers, school counselors, behavior techs for the general population too, paras and academic tutors are not luxuries, but essential components of a healthy learning environment. As I have always viewed it, the overarching role of the Board of Education is to advocate for and support the needs of our students and teachers. While this budget makes important strides, I hope that future budgets will incrementally address the unmet needs of our general education students. In particular, I would like to see the restoration of the advanced placement courses at Enfield High that were eliminated during the significant cuts in the 24-25 budget. Providing rigorous academic opportunities is critical for our students' growth and future readiness. Our superintendent has wisely said, if you want to know what is going on in our schools, ask our students. Well, our student reps on this dais and even last year's has spoken passionately about the need to reinstate the Career Center and the positive impact that it has had on them and their peers. I appreciate that the superintendent heard that concern voiced by so many students, parents, and teachers, and has added a full-time, non-certified staff member to support students in this area. I am hopeful that in the coming years, this program can continue to expand until it is restored to its original design and fully funded. At the elementary level, I would like to see the class sizes capped at 20. We all know that class sizes usually end up increasing as the school year progresses. As a former teacher, I can say that the optimum and ideal number of students is 18 per classroom. So when you end up with a class size of 25 by June, that makes a huge difference. And 25 is not necessarily the highest number. Ultimately, it is our duty and responsibility as a board to present a budget that clearly reflects the true needs of our school system, so that our town council has an accurate picture of what it takes to fully support our students and our teachers. Thoughtful, transparent advocacy is part of our obligation to this community. With all that in mind, I will be voting yes on the budget proposal. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Kiner. Any other comments? Mr. Gauss?
So last year, when Mr. Macchio took over and was doing the budget, he had, I don't even know how to describe the size of the job. He had to take the budget that we had and turn it into basically this, but a little smaller. And I like that things are growing incrementally rather than just taking big chunks and saying we need, 60 more teachers, which we just can't afford to grow like that. I believe to address one of Mrs. Kiner's questions, and Ms. Middleton may be able to help with this as she sits out there in the audience. I believe the curriculum committee it was discussed in there that there are AP classes coming on.
Yes, we actually.
I was gonna say, we've been increasing. I'll chime in while you're taking your seat. But we did have significant cuts to our programs to as Nuntuck. So those have not been restored.
Some of the AP, am I on? Okay. Some of the AP classes did not run that first year because scheduling and maybe not enough requests. But you are correct. We changed anatomy and physiology, and I believe honors anatomy and physiology, and I believe honors pre-calculus. I hope I'm getting those both correct, to AP. So we do have 2 more coming on next year. You are correct.
So we are growing in that respect.
Correct.
Also. So
Yes.
that's great. And I just wanted to clear that stuff up.
And we
Thank you.
also made one of the culinary courses to be weighted as an honors because of it was a full year course, and there's going to be opportunities for certifications along with that. So because of that, there's extra rigor in the course.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I knew we were growing that
Yep,
way too.
no,
And I
you're-
just want to bring that to light.
You're right.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you. Mr. Wright?
Thanks. I want to start by saying that our residents can no longer dig from empty pockets, and our district can no longer be asked to do more with less. We need relief from our state with the continued mandates, and we need to recognize that our towns and our state representatives must support that effort, but it all starts here. For the past month and more, we have carefully reviewed the proposed budget. We've asked thoughtful questions. We've brought forward our considerations and our concerns. Throughout this entire process, our superintendent has supported us every step of the way, while remaining committed to strengthening our district and continuing to rebuilding process from what we lost 2 years ago. As a resident, I take great pride in this town and in the community where I grew up. But I have also seen a decline in the things we truly value here. While I don't want my taxes to increase, I trust the decisions made here and by the town council are made with the best interests of our town in mind. Looking ahead, there are a few priorities I would like to see reflected in future Board of Education budgets. First, strong supports not only for our students, but for our families. I have mentioned this before, and I will continue to say this, but I truly believe the family advocate model used in Stowe should be implemented throughout the entire district. This would not only assist those in immediate need, but would strengthen our community as a whole. While I'm happy to see the LEAP program has been reinstated, I believe that we should try to extend this to not only one category, but to them all. Second, we need more social workers and behavioral support in our schools, and this is for all students. The current caseloads are overwhelming. These professionals are dedicated and hardworking, but they need additional support. Expanding these positions would allow them to better serve the students they already support and reach those who may still be struggling. Third, and I will say exactly what Bobby said, smaller class sizes. This was something we discussed during our campaign, and it is something I will continue to stand by. Both teachers and students need relief. Smaller classes give teachers the opportunity to provide more individualized attention and create stronger learning environments for everyone. Lastly, I want to express my sincere appreciation for the clear and thorough presentation of this budget, as well as the detailed budget book provided over the past month. We have a plan, and we need the continued support from all our elected officials to keep this plan moving forward in the right direction. We understand what needs to be done, and we are actively working to rebuild our schools. I especially appreciate the zero-based budgeting approach. As has been explained in prior meetings, this method requires administrators and staff to build their budgets from actual needs, not simply from previous spending or wish lists. This is about what is necessary to keep our schools running effectively. At the same time, I value the clear understanding that we cannot overburden our residents. Thank you again for the tremendous amount of time and effort that has gone into this budget process. It is truly appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you.
Avery, did you have another comment to make? She had raised her
Thank you. Avery, thank you, Ms. Cushman.
Yeah, it was just a little tidbit I wanted to add about the Career Center. I know Mr. Gass was mentioning this before, just the importance of like the trades and just having students like who want to do that being appreciated. I know the Career Center really did emphasize trade opportunities for students, and I just think it's like a good opportunity to emphasize those things further because a lot of students really would find value in the trades, and often it's overlooked. So I just think by reinstating the Career Center to what it was, at least sort of to what it was a few years ago, it would really be beneficial to a bunch of different types of people.
Thank you, Avery. Ms. Cushman?
I do appreciate all the work that has been put into the thoughtful detail and presentation. And it is kind of a tricky, not tricky, but it's a balancing act when you consider that last month I was saying I really was encouraging any savings realized to not be reinvested, but to reduce our ask to maintain the savings so that what we're asking for is at a minimum. And yet listening to what's been discussed in these weeks and in our document and the rationale behind them, I recognize the need and the desire that we have as a board to really move forward sustainably. And yet to look at in our town this referendum with the schools, we're just really in a desperate place to want to see it passed, you know? So how to balance our needs with a greater need of seeing our schools that realized of being able to be built. So I do support this budget, and I just appreciate the detail that goes into and the rationale and the thought that goes into it. And I just appreciate that and look forward to what the town council will do moving forward.
Thank you, Ms. Cushman. Ms. McGuire Bruce?
All right, so some of my comments are going to be echoed, but that's all right. I want to start by thanking the superintendent for the work that went into developing this budget, particularly the effort to find a way to preserve our tutor positions. These are direct supports for students, and I appreciate the focus on maintaining services that have clear and immediate impact on student learning. I also want to express my support for the direction we're moving as a district. From a board perspective, I believe this budget reflects thoughtful balance. Staying under that 5% increase was something our superintendent was cognizant of, and also ensures that each major investment is aligned to and directly supports our district improvement plan. While we are not able to fund everything we want, or even ultimately everything we may need, I do believe this budget represents meaningful progress towards rebuilding critical systems and supports. As we look ahead, reducing class sizes should remain a long-term priority. Smaller classes allow for more targeted, responsive instruction. Teachers are better able to work with small groups consistently, monitor student progress in real time, and adjust instruction based on individual needs. Differentiation becomes more meaningful when it's done for 20 students instead of 25. Feedback can be more specific, interventions can be more immediate, and enrichment can be more intentional. Teachers can build stronger relationships that positively impact engagement, behavior, and academic growth that we're looking for. While this may not be fully addressed in the current budget, it should stay a long-term planning goal. We must also prioritize expanding behavior supports. Whether through techs, specialists, coaches, or another model, stronger proactive systems are needed to support general education classrooms. If we want teachers to be able to teach and administrators to fully focus on their role as instructional leaders, we need consistent proactive systems in place that help address student behavior in effective and supportive ways. When teachers feel supported and disruptions decrease, instructional time increases, morale improves, and overall school climate strengthens. This capacity is essential to sustaining our academic progress. I also think it would be helpful for us to continue reviewing the implementation of instructional coaching through the curriculum committee. That would give us an opportunity to better understand how that model is developing, how roles are being supported, and how it is aligned with our district improvement goals, and ultimately if the tutors are still needed. Overall, I believe this budget reflects balance, thoughtful financial planning, and use of resources, and a continued focus on improving outcomes for students and strengthening supports for teachers. It reflects thoughtful progress and responsible planning and provides a strong foundation as we continue to build supports for students and teachers together. For these reasons, I will be voting yes on tonight's budget.
Thank you. Any other comments before I close us out? All right. So I want to begin by thanking our superintendent and our central office team for the tremendous amount of work that went into building this budget. I also want to give a special thank you to Lorena Cisneros for her countless hours behind the scenes. We don't see her here, but I know the work that she is doing. Steve, you and your team, thank you for your diligence, your responsiveness, and commitment to getting it right. That does not go unnoticed. I also want to express appreciation to our superintendent for truly hearing our advocacy as a board. The addition of student-level supports, including the tutors and the Career Center position, reflects a willingness to listen and respond in ways that directly impact students. I'm especially grateful for the sustainable approach to budgeting, one that balances immediate needs with long-term responsibility. To my fellow Board of Ed members, thank you for your thoughtful and sometimes tough questions. Phil, you had a bunch that were kind of tough, but good ones. They come from a place of deep care for our students, our staff, and this community. That passion strengthens our work and ultimately strengthens this budget. As we move forward, our role doesn't stop at approval. We're eager to monitor implementation and impact. We look forward to continued discussions in curriculum about the coaching model and the outcomes we're seeing in classrooms, the development and growth of the Career Center and its impact on students, and the effectiveness of our special education programs and supports. We also recognize that this budget doesn't exist in a vacuum. We hear the concerns of our community, the desire for smaller class sizes and additional programs and supports, and we understand that families are feeling a financial strain. We don't take that responsibility lightly, and we are responsible stewards of taxpayer dollars. Every line in this budget represents careful consideration, balancing what our students need to thrive today with our obligation to be fiscally responsible for tomorrow. And as you know, we have our eye on that horizon. Even as we take this step forward today, we're already thinking about next budget cycle. So I too hope to see continued growth in whole school supports, expanded behavioral and mental health services, strong staffing in classrooms and specialist roles, and continued innovation and expansion of our course offerings while remaining committed to sustainability and transparency. This budget represents meaningful progress. It reflects a district that is listening to students, staff, and to our community. It is a significant step in the right direction. I'm proud of the thoughtful, collaborative work happening across our district as we work to provide what our students deserve while honoring the trust of our taxpayers. So tonight, I will also be voting yes. With that, Leslie, can we have roll call?
Mr. Gauss.
Didn't think I'd be first. Yes.
Mr. Anderson.
No.
Ms. Broculio.
Yes.
Mrs. Cushman.
Yes.
Mrs. Gerard.
Yes.
Mrs. Kiner.
Yes.
Mr. Kober.
Yes.
Mrs. McGuire Bruce.
Yes.
Board Chair Pickett.
Yes.
Motion passes.
All right.
8-1-0.
Thank you. I will share with the public after tonight's vote. Steve, I'm correct. March 30th, we are presenting to Town Council.
Yeah, that was gonna be my closing remarks. Is congratulations, you now have a Board of Education budget. My understanding is that we're going to be requested to present the budget to the Town Council on March 30th.
Confirmation.
I do not have confirmation, but we were given 2 dates, and I believe the 30th was the one that we accepted. But look for your weekly update.
Thank you. All right, no new business, and we will do board committee reports, starting with curriculum, Ms. Kiner.
The February 19th curriculum meeting was rescheduled for tomorrow, February 25th at 5 o'clock in Michelle Middleton's office. And that's it for that.
Thank you. And we will be discussing the TAG program for those who are interested in maybe attending or getting us some updates. Thank you, Ms. Kiner. Finance Committee.
The Finance Committee next meeting will be Monday, March 2nd.
Policy.
Last night we met and made changes based on the feedback from the first reading of our 9000 series. And we will present those at our March 10th meeting. Our next policy meeting will be held at the high school at 5 p.m. The location within the building is to be determined due to the first readers event taking place that evening.
Thanks, I forgot we did that. All right, and leadership. We will have a leadership meeting on March 4th, but I do want to update the public. Phil had alluded to this. We did have a joint leadership meeting with our counterparts on the town side. We discussed some possible bus safety measures. Mr. Anderson, you'll be excited to hear potentially about some of that. The high school auditorium equipment needs, where we did have discussion about what our facility needs and what our instructional needs. There will be continued work outlining some clarity around those gray areas. However, I do believe we agreed to 50-50 split the cost on the auditorium equipment. We gave an update of our current budget where there was discussion around the unused funds in our 200 line item, which is employee benefits and insurance fund. There's an interest to develop joint policy for this smart fiscal practice. We also talked about long-term budget planning in the budget we voted on tonight. Our school modernization was also touched upon, thinking clearly about how we reuse our buildings and how we can work collaboratively on shared spaces. All right, moving on to liaison reports. Anybody with school updates? Ooh, I'm going to go with Ms. McGuire Bruce and then Ms. Gerard.
Just real quick, Enfield Street School is getting ready to kick off Read Across America Week next week. Each day, March 2nd to 6th, has a theme for the love of reading, starting out with Reading Jogs the Mind. Check out the rest of those themes. They got very creative in this week's Gazette. And final reminder to grab your raffle calendar tickets before it's too late. I am hoping to win in March.
Mr. Ard. So a kite update real quick. Next meeting is March 4th at 5:30 p.m. at Asnuntuck. Read Across America Week is coming up on March 2nd to March 6th, and they are hosting a Spirit Week as well. So get ready and make sure you check that out on Parent Square. Parent-teacher conferences, like mentioned before, the signups were sent out. They're not only on Parent Square, they were also sent out through your email, so you can check that as well. The PTO pasta fundraiser is due tomorrow, so make sure you get those forms, the completed forms, and checks and money in. And then the PTO's next Zoom meeting is on March 10th at 7 p.m. via Zoom. Oh, and lastly, because I think someone mentioned this before, but I want to make sure, because I'm super excited about this, but the Enfield Music Fest is on Thursday, March 5th, and my son is in the chorus, and I'm super proud of all of the kids that joined in on this for 5th graders all across, but especially our Parkman kids. So make sure you check that out. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Ms. Kiner?
Yes, I have two reports, one from Prudence Crandall. Due to the recent school cancellation, the book fair has been rescheduled and will now take place on Wednesday and Thursday from 6 to 8 p.m. We have had an overwhelming amount of interest in math science this winter, and we are thrilled to see so many students excited about this opportunity. Due to the high level of participation, we will be opening an additional section in the spring to accommodate more students. Please see the flyer in the newsletter. And finally, from the principal, Read Across America Week is a nationwide celebration each March that promotes the joy and importance of reading. We will celebrate with a school-wide spirit schedule the week of March 2nd and concluding with our readathon on Friday, March 6th. And that's it from Prudence Crandall. I also have Head Start. The Head Start Policy Committee is working to update our selection criteria for new student applications, and this is done annually and is based on the needs of the community. We are fully enrolled and currently accepting applications for the fall. Visit www.enfieldschools.org to apply. We are still awaiting our notice of award for our new grant, which begins March 1st. We have an annual science night in partnership with Kite coming up on March 25th for students pre-K to grade 1. This event will be held at Enfield High School in the auditorium from 5:30 to 6:30. And that's it for Head Start.
Thank you, Ms. Kiner.
Thank you. You're welcome.
Ms. Cushman?
Eli Whitney School has had an engaging and eventful February so far. Students enjoyed the planetarium Sky Dome experience tremendously, which provided a fun and educational exploration of astronomy. Students also learned about the history of original jazz through a presentation by Vinny Casada and his band. A STEAM update is that for each class, they've had digital citizenship lessons that have just focused on creating strong passwords, how our online messages impact others, leaving a digital footprint, digital etiquette, a lot of things that we encourage in the schools and also want to carry over to our homes as well. There are also several exciting upcoming events, including links to library made possible through a partnership with LEGO Celebration, and an evening of smiles and amazement on February 25th at 5:30, bringing students, families, and staff together for a special community event. Space is limited for this family event and will be on a first-come, first-served basis. So for those interested, be sure to sign up soon. Eli Whitney will also be hosting a family math and literacy night on March 4th from 6 to 7:30. It will be an opportunity for families to play games, to practice fluency in math and reading, plus enjoy an ice cream treat from the Collins Creamery and receive a special bookmark. And the Whitney Wolves will also be celebrating literacy during the Read Across America Week next week with themed activities and school-wide evening reading events to foster a love of reading.
Thank you, Ms. Cushman. Mr. Kober?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Excuse me. I just want to shout out that ERFC summer camp registration is now open. This program includes field trips, outdoor activities, STEAM, sports, and games, and is for children ages entering kindergarten to grade 8. It will run on weekdays for 7 weeks from June 29th to August 14th, and it will utilize space at Eli Whitney. Visit erfcinc.org for more information or to sign up today. Thank you.
I will give a Hazardville update. They have an assembly on the 26th, so in a couple days. Reminder to all families in our elementary schools, conferences are on March 11th. The sign up did go through Parent Square, so be on the lookout for that. Kindergarten registration also opens up on March 13th. So families who have kiddos going on to kindergarten, make sure you get that registration going. And we have a first reader ceremony on March 17th. And I'm so thankful to our high school reps because they do a great job of giving us an update of the high school. All right, joint facilities.
So for those who are not able to attend or listen to the last town council meeting, I want to provide a brief update. So the Joint Facilities Committee will now be placing its primary focus on the town's roofs and completing the rooferendum. Currently, the roofs at Parkman and Crandall are on hold. We are looking to develop a 5-year plan to repair and properly maintain the existing roofs if and when the pre-K to 5 pre-referendum passes. More detailed information will be shared once the first round of assessments has been completed. Those assessments will take place after the snow has cleared so that the proper moisture evaluation can be conducted. The next roof being considered for replacement is Stowe. We recognize this is a priority, especially given that classrooms had to be relocated to Enfield Street last year due to roof-related issues. We will continue to keep residents informed as more information becomes available. The next meeting will be held on March 12th at 6 p.m.
Thank you, Ms. Gerard, for that update, especially noting the changes in the committee direction. I also just want to share publicly and with the board, there's been communication with town council that any school facility related conversation that happens in the DPW subcommittee, that board is represented and board liaisons with our central office team. We are working on seeing if there's ways that we can memorialize that so we can ensure membership on that committee. Joint insurance, I'm going to give this update, and Steve, feel free to chime in. Insurance is a large portion of our budget, and thinking about responsible fiscal practices. The town and the Board of Ed are working on drafting policy about what we do with remaining funds in our 200 line item, which is our employee benefits, and drafting some type of policy around transferring those funds to the insurance fund balance. So that is joint work, really looking at proper fiscal practices and ensuring that we are funding our insurance fund balance, since we are a self-insured policy type program. Steve, anything you want to clarify, since I wasn't there and I just did probably a horrible job updating that?
No, so you didn't do a horrible job. So through conversations with the Joint Insurance Committee, Mr. Koppler and I have been discussing how to ensure that the appropriate percentage is maintained in the insurance fund. Because, again, you have to think about that fund as a bank account, and that is where your bills are getting paid for in terms of your health coverage and your health and dental insurance. I think there has been possibly some practice in the past where that fund was used to assist in terms of budget increases and whatnot. We've worked really hard to not do that moving forward so that we could make sure that that fund does maintain an appropriate percentage. So hopefully we'll be able to craft something, and jointly between the town council and the Board of Education, we will come to some level of agreement in terms of how to move forward with that. I do anticipate being able to shift a portion of our balance at the end of the year over to that self-funded account, because again, we requested the taxpayers to fund us at a certain percentage. A portion of that percentage was based on insurance. So since we asked for it and we have it, that's where it should go.
Do we have another date scheduled for that meeting?
We do not at this time.
Perfect, thank you. All right, joint security, Ms. Kiner.
The February 13th meeting was canceled, and the next joint security meeting is March 13th, 9:30 a.m. in the Skidco room at the town hall.
Thank you, Ms. Kiner. Pre-ref committee.
Yep. So we discussed the next steps, including working closely with our state legislators to ensure the proper wording for any waivers or additional items that may need to move forward. The next major step with the design team is the environmental assessments. These assessments will help build out the ed spec books. There will be one for each school, and they function as how I described it, is a very detailed owner's manual. I think Mr. Gauss and Ms. Cushman can contest to that. It was very, very detailed and interesting to see. And it's about the conditions also of each building as well, and what we need or what we may want in the future. So community conversation number 3 was well received. I know I spoke about this before. We did address many of the reoccurring questions from residents, and it's clear that the biggest concern continues to be how taxes will be impacted. The chair is continuing to work with the town to set a meeting date to finalize that information so we can provide clear answers. We hear you, and we are doing our best to get that information out as soon as possible. There is also the possibility of holding a 4th community conversation once more details are available. The hope remains to hold a special election sometime in September, although that date is not yet been finalized, but hopes to be soon. Our next 2 meetings are scheduled for March 11th and April 1st, 6 p.m. Skidco room. I don't know if anyone else has anything to add.
If you don't mind, could I add on one item? One of the questions, and I think the important question, again, as Mr. Anderson had brought up earlier, is what is the impact going to be on the taxpayer? So Mr. Wilcox was waiting because we had yet to receive final payment for the Enfield High School project being closed out. I was able to reach out to the Office of Grants Administration for the state and did receive confirmation very late last week that they have recognized that they have not sent us that payment, and the payment will be received in the next 7 to 14 days. So I think the item that Mr. Wilcox was waiting for is coming, and there was, I want to say it's a little over $4 million in terms of the high school project that will be able to be put back on the rolls. So he should now have the information he needs to truly get us the numbers. But that was a hang up. So.
Yeah, and I thank you for that advocacy with that, because I know that was a very big frustration in the committee on that day. So thank you.
Thanks. And I would just remind us as a board that we will be scheduling a special meeting to review those ed specs in April-ish.
First week of April, please.
All right. So everyone check your
The ed specs are needed, and it's not just the conversation that you need to have and the vote that you need to have, but we need to do the beginning of April. You need to have your vote, and then we need to approve the minutes, because it's the approved minutes that we need to utilize when we submit for the grants.
Thank you. All right. Do I have a motion to approve the regular Board of Ed meeting minutes for February 10th, 2026?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion made by Ms. McGuire, seconded by Ms. Gerard. Hand vote. All in favor? That looks like 9 in favor, 0 against, no abstentions. There is no approval of accounts and payroll. Any correspondence? No correspondence. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Kober.
Second.
Ooh, seconded by Mr. Gauss. All in favor? That's another unanimous, 9 in favor, none against, and we are closing out.